in James P. Moore, founder and CEO of the Washington Institute for Business, Government and Society. Sir, thanks so much for coming on and being with us. Let me start with this. Fetcher Jay Powell says he expects inflation to increase as a result of Trump's import levies, and it's too soon to determine a path on rates. What's your reaction to that? And the Fed's in a tight spot, isn't it?
It certainly is, and thank you for having me, Karina. I'll tell you, it's not just a matter of inflation, but the fact that the economy itself may find itself in a very difficult quagmire.
Yeah, absolutely. And just speaking to that market sell-off, this isn't just sort of panic selling, is it? It's bad policy breeding bad outcomes. Do you agree with that? And which U.S. sectors are most impacted by the retaliatory taxes China is now primed to set in motion on April 10th?
Absolutely. You know, as we are talking to one another right now, the stock market has gone down 2,000 points, the New York Stock Exchange. And indeed, yesterday it went down about 1,600. But in the days leading up to the actual announcement, we saw the stock market going down by hundreds of points. And so this is a very serious situation. We're going through historic times. And honestly, for an awful lot of companies, and some companies here in the United States, as of the past 24 hours, have laid off literally thousands of employees until they can figure out exactly what's going to happen. And we're going to have to be dealing with things such as supply chain management in trying to figure out what other options are open to those companies that are being hit particularly hard with regards to these new tariffs.
Yeah, so James, then how can businesses in this environment make forward-looking plans amid all of this uncertainty and watching their company stock tank if you're a large corporation, and for smaller ones, whether you can survive taxes on imports?
You're so right. You know, it's interesting, but I served as U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce. And when I did, Ronald Reagan was indeed the President of the United States. And I can remember some of his remarks when he would say, protectionism is destructionism, and that indeed it costs jobs. And the fact that the freer the flow of world trade, the stronger the tides for human progress and peace-loving nations. Well, the fact remains is that I had gone up to Ottawa, Canada, for example, to be able to talk with members of Parliament and the Prime Minister at that time to talk about forming a U.S.-Canada free trade agreement. We were successful in being able to do that. And then we turned south and we went to Mexico, and we put together ultimately what was called NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. And then we created the World Trade Organization. And there's no question that there were problems in the execution of that, but it was a matter of going in and trying to fix the problems rather than simply wiping them off the map and really reordering the global world that we have been living in all these years.
Yeah, he really is trying to upend decades and decades of free trade. Now, Trump has said these tariffs are an opening salvo, right? An invitation to come to the negotiating table. So far, China isn't biting, and Trump's made clear he would like to make a deal using TikTok as some sort of vessel. There is a lot of pride at stake, however, of individual leaders and national pride as well across the globe. If countries choose to dig in and don't want to start a dialogue, what long-term effects do these tariffs have on our economy, and how is China's economy affected as well?
Well, you know, the interesting part of it for the United States in imposing these tariffs, the American people themselves, certainly in the short term, are going to suffer far more than other countries, simply because inflation is going to be eating in on 401ks, for retirement, for the products that you buy in the store, whether it's the grocery store or whether it's buying furniture. China also is going to have some real problems, but they too, of course, are coming out, and we're watching not a geopolitical war so much as clearly an economic war, and it's got to stop. And quite frankly, President Trump, of course, has been in the driver's seat in starting all this, and it's going to be very much in his lap to be able to figure out a way to be able to bring the global economic system back into some semblance of order.
Absolutely. Well, that is great perspective. Thank you so much for coming on with us, James Moore.
Thank you so much, Karina.